Chapter 18. The Nature of Qualitative Research. Introduction. Sometimes a researcher wants to obtain an in-depth look at a particular individual, situation, or set of materials. Instead of asking such questions as "What do people think about this?" as in survey research, or "What would happen if I do this?" as in experimental research, the researcher asks the following questions: how do these people act? How are things done? How do people give meaning to their lives? To answer these questions, researchers use a number of methodologies that bear the label qualitative research. This chapter discusses the essentials of this approach and one of the methods that qualitative researchers use: interview studies, and Chapter 19 discusses additional methods of qualitative research. What is qualitative research? The term qualitative research refers to studies that investigate the quality of relationships, activities, situations, or materials. Qualitative researchers are especially interested in how things occur and particularly in the perspectives of the subjects of a study. 2. General characteristics of qualitative research. The natural setting is a direct source of data, and the researcher is a key part of the instrumentation process in qualitative research. Qualitative data are collected mainly in the form of words or pictures and seldom involve numbers. Coding is the primary technique used in data analysis. Qualitative researchers are especially interested in how things occur and particularly in the perspectives of the subjects of a study. Qualitative researchers do not, usually, formulate a hypothesis beforehand and then seek to test it. Rather, they allow hypotheses to emerge as a study develops. Qualitative and quantitative research differ in the philosophical assumptions that underlie the two approaches. 3. Philosophical assumptions underlying qualitative as opposed to quantitative research. The quantitative approach is associated with the philosophy of positivism, which emerged in the 19th century. Kant argued that the positive stage of human knowledge is reached when people begin to rely on empirical data, reason, and the development of scientific laws to explain phenomena. The scientific method, positivists believe, is the surest way to produce effective knowledge. Many of them advocate a more artistic, as opposed to a scientific, approach to research. Further, their goals are often different. This is illustrated by the preference of some for fostering multiple interpretations of events, depending on how they are perceived by the individuals involved. 4. Postmodernism. Postmodernists offer a number of criticisms of traditional research, but perhaps the most common are these. They deny the existence of underlying structures, e.g., meaning, laws, in the domain of social behavior. They argue that all naturally occurring, i.e., non-mathematical, languages are inevitably made up of ambiguous terms that change over time and that, therefore, all statements that use these languages cannot be verified. Steps in qualitative research. The steps involved in conducting a qualitative study are not as distinct as they are in quantitative studies. They often overlap and sometimes are even conducted concurrently. All qualitative studies begin with a foreshadowed problem, the particular phenomenon the researcher is interested in investigating. Some qualitative researchers state propositions to help their data collection and also analysis. Researchers who engage in a qualitative study of some type usually select a purposive sample. Several types of purposive samples exist. There is no treatment in a qualitative study, nor is there any manipulation of variables. The collection of data in a qualitative study is ongoing. Conclusions are drawn continuously throughout the course of a qualitative study. 6. Approaches to qualitative research. A. Narrative research. A biographical study tells the story of the special events in the life of a single individual. B. Phenomenology. A researcher studies an individual's reactions to a particular phenomenon in a phenomenological study. He or she attempts to identify the commonalities among different individual perceptions. C. Grounded theory. In a grounded theory study, a researcher forms a theory inductively from the data collected as a part of the study. D. Case studies. A case study is a detailed study of one or, at most, a few individuals or other social units, such as a classroom, a school, or a neighborhood. It can also be a study of an event, an activity, or an ongoing process. E. Ethnographic and historical research. Ethnographic research focuses on the study of culture. Historical research concentrates exclusively on the past. F. Sampling in qualitative research. Researchers who engage in some form of qualitative research are likely to select a purposive sample, that is, they select a sample they feel will yield the best understanding of what they are studying. At least 9 types of purposive sampling have been identified. Typical sample. Critical sample. Homogeneous sample. Extreme case sample. Theoretical sample. Snowball sample. Opportunistic sample. Confirming sample. Maximal variation sample. 7. Qualitative data analysis. Data analysis in qualitative research is an iterative and continuously comparative process that involves reducing and retrieving large amounts of written, and sometimes pictorial, information. Qualitative data are usually obtained from interviews, observations, and focus groups. The technique that qualitative researchers most often use to analyze their data is called coding. In general, codes are tags or labels for assigning meaning to chunks of data. Qualitative codes can be descriptive or interpretive and are usually generated a priori, selective coding, or emerge inductively, open coding, from data. Codes and subcodes are often refined iteratively by qualitative researchers as they strive to make sense of their data through categorization, thematic analysis, and in some cases advanced theory building. 8. Generalization in qualitative research. Generalizing is possible in qualitative research, but it is of a type different from that found in quantitative studies. Most likely it will be done by interested practitioners. In qualitative studies, the researcher may also generalize, but it is much more likely that any generalizing to be done will be carried out by interested practitioners, by individuals who are in situations similar to the ones investigated by the researcher. It is the practitioner, rather than the researcher, who judges the applicability of the researcher's findings and conclusions, who determines whether the researcher's findings fit his or her situation. 9. Internal validity in qualitative research. To the extent that a qualitative study does not attempt to explore relationships, internal validity is, strictly speaking, not as important as it is in quantitative research. However, because qualitative research is so dependent on the researcher in both collecting and interpreting information, an important consideration, even in purely descriptive studies, is researcher bias. Qualitative studies frequently do contain interpretations involving relationships. When this is the case, attention should be given to assessing and, where possible, controlling each of the threats discussed in Chapter 9. X. Ethics and qualitative research. The identities of all participants in a qualitative study should be protected, and they should be treated with respect. Researchers should do their best to ensure that no physical or psychological harm will come to anyone who participates in the study. While researchers can never be sure how their findings will be received, they must always be sure to think carefully about the implications of their work, who the results of this work may affect, and how. 11. Qualitative and quantitative research reconsidered. Aspects of both qualitative and quantitative research often are used together in a study. Increased attention is being given to such mixed method studies. Whether qualitative or quantitative research is the most appropriate boils down to what the researcher wants to find out.